So obviously, we've had a bit of rain this year. In fact, the lake out here at Valmont is so full that the measuring stick that Don put out there back in the days of the flood in 2013 is now measuring about 1.5 feet above what is the average water level for our lake. Our region has been inundated with such an incredible amount of water that it feels as though we are just being washed away, that the landscape is altering because of the deluge that we have had over the last several months. Some of the islands out on the lake have entirely disappeared this season because of the amount of water that has overwhelmed us. In ways, this can be a good thing. We have the gift of sustenance, of things being refreshed, reinvigorated, washing away the possibility of a drought for the foreseeable future. The mountains were heavily laden with snow, and the rivers are flowing, the lakes are at capacity or beyond. There is life teeming because of the water in this region. However, there are also some negative effects. The geese have had less room to raise their chicks, their goslings on the lake, because of the disappearance of those islands. In Aniva's and my garden, things are up to such a late start that we're only now starting to see tomatoes, and there's a decent chance that we won't get the benefit of the butternut squash or the watermelons that we planted because it has been so overcast, so wet. Things have had difficulty germinating and then growing to produce fruit. And when I think about these dual effects of water, something that is so essential for life, but something that can also be fearful and challenging, I think about the passage that we've heard today from the prophecy of Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel is a bit of an odd duck. We've looked at some of his prophecies in the past, and they are confusing. They can be alienating. They are challenging. And yet, in the midst of all of the strangeness of the prophet who's seeing wheels in the sky, who's laying on his side to symbolize the siege of Jerusalem, who's baking bread over feces, we also get some of the most wondrous promises in prophetic literature. The thrice repeated refrain that God will give us a new heart and a new spirit, so that we will know what the Lord requires of us, so that we will be able to live rightly in God's world. We have the promise of the valley of dry bones, in which Israel is raised up, not only single individuals in resurrection, but an entire people, so that God can show that there is not one obstacle for God fulfilling the promises that God has spoken. And now here, in the very, very end of Ezekiel's prophecies, after he has seen a vision of the land being unmade so that it can be remade anew, into a new kind of Eden, a new possibility for living at peace with the creation that God so dearly loves, we see the temple rebuilt. And the temple is not the ordinary sort of building that we would expect for worship amongst the people of Israel. If anything, the temple becomes almost like a repository of water. And that repository, the gates are opened, the floodgates allow for the water to flow out into the land. And the river that comes out of it is not a mere trickle. It's not something that you could wade through. It becomes a mighty torrent that is forever going to change the landscape so that it can produce good things. Being in Israel, the image that is given is of the Dead Sea, a place that is so low on the earth that there is no escape for the water that ends up going there. Its only way out is to evaporate, leaving these heavy salt deposits that make it impossible for life to exist there. Well, much like the Valley of Dry Bones, the Dead Sea is made alive. It is filled to teeming with fish so that it can sustain a people, that it can feed them, that it can care for them. Similarly, the trees that grow offer a chance for healing, a newness of existence. Well, the metaphor here seems rather potent and clear. We see that the river, the water that is coming out of the temple, is not simply doing what the rainfall has done here in Colorado, making it so green here at the beginning of August, lifting up our lake and erasing the indications of past islands. No, what this river is doing is flowing out of the temple, out of the home of God's presence, the home of God's worship. And it is not staying there, that life-giving activity, that healing power, but instead it is flowing out into the world and making things new. We, as the people of God, who live amongst a people who are in need of life, a people who are in need of healing, we are the living water. At least we are called to be. We aren't supposed to keep this living water amassed in storage silos in our church buildings. But the life that we experience here is meant to flow out into the world. It is meant to heal the world. It is meant to give the world life. It is meant to feed the world with hope and a future. And so, as we think about the incredible power of the rain that has fallen here in Colorado, the incredible changes that have been worked through its presence in our midst, how might we work with such power? How might we accomplish such incredible change? How can we make the rough places smooth and lift up the valleys so that all people might walk together along the highway of the Lord, not inhibited by the obstacles that have been in their way in the past, but rather set free to live, set free to experience what life is like through the only one who can give living water, our Lord Jesus Christ. I pray that you will be our Lord's water, the living water that is poured out into the world so as to make things new, so as to give life, so as to bring healing. This is what we are charged with doing. So may you go forth and make the world alive with the power of our God's flowing life. May you be living water for this world. Thanks be to God.